we'll start at 2:10. Let the other people join as well. And also, we'll share a Google form link at the end of the workshop, so you guys can get your certificate of participation. Yeah. So if you want to bring your friends as well, you can do that. Okay, let's get started. I guess the others will join in between. Okay, let me share my screen. And I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the last time in the previous workshop, we targeted this nav bar and the home section. And if you guys were not present in the previous workshop, you can go to YouTube and view the workshop over there. It's uploaded. And in this workshop, which will be the final workshop for this series, we're going to be making the skills section, the project section, and the contact section. Cool. So I want you guys to open up your IDEs, your VS Codes, your Atoms, whatever you use. And let's start coding. Okay. Okay. So the last time we finished out the home section. So now we're going to be starting with the skills section. Okay. Right. So I'm going to add a comment here saying that I want to make the skills section here. Okay. So last time the approach that we had was we created a div with a class which is going to wrap the whole section, then a container which is a bootstrap defined class, then a row which is also a bootstrap defined class, and then we create 2 columns inside that row. So we're going to be following a similar approach for this one as well. So I'm going to say that I want something like a skills section class, and then inside that I want a container class, and then inside that I want a row class. And इसके अंदर I'll just copy paste this class inside a div. So let's say that I want the first column, and I hope you're clear by now what this means. It means that your typical device is divided into 12 strips, 12 columns. And then if it's a large device, it'll occupy 6 of those columns. So it'll be 1 by 2 over there and 1 by 2 on the right. Then if it's a medium, do the same. And if it's a small device, then occupy the whole width. Okay. So what we see here is we have 2 columns. The first column contains this little section, and the second column contains this progress bar thing. So we're going to see how we are going to make these 2 columns. Okay, so the first thing I will do is I will wrap the whole column inside div, and I'll create an h1. I'll call it my skills. Right, and I'm going to add a span tag, which is going to contain the full stop, so that we can explicitly style this and say that the color we need is just sort of inside a theme. And refresh it and we see it. Let's apply some Bootstrap classes over here. Text white, which will make the text white. And I'm actually going to apply a heading as well, an ID of heading, so we can target this h1 in the CSS. And we save it, we refresh, and there we go. Then you might see like this little transparent light line over here. This can be achieved using an HR tag. An HR tag stands for horizontal rule, and it doesn't close. It's an empty tag. So after this, we want some paragraph text. We'll say that these are the areas I have an expertise in. Let's copy this and paste it here. And then inside the span tag, I will include the exclamation mark and style it. Let's actually copy this style. Cool. After this, I want these little blocks of things. So this is actually a Bootstrap defined thing. It's called a list group. So we're gonna call a div. Let's call it skills list, maybe. And then I want a UL in here, which stands for unordered list. It's gonna make an unordered list. And the class that I want to assign to this UL is going to be the list group. Right, and I want a bunch of items in here. And I'm gonna contain them in an anchor tag. Don't want them to link to anything. And let's say I have expertise in full stack development. And let's assign a class to this li. Let's call it list group item. Yes, and I just want to duplicate these items and say that I also have an expertise in game development, and I also play a little bit of Valorant. Let's add that there. Okay, we're pretty much done. When we save it and we look at our page, you will see these white blocks which look nowhere near this, but we'll achieve that through CSS. Now let's start with the second column. In here we need the progress bars, right? So let's first of all create a wrapper div, and then I'll target this using the class of skill. Okay. Up इसके लिए we have a very good method which is going to say that I want to go to Bootstrap Progress Bar. And the first link, and you see these progress bars over there, which is going to copy this code, and we are going to paste it inside here. Now it has a bunch of attributes. The first one is this class of progress bar, which is like a Bootstrap defined class, then a role of progress bar, and these aria, value, now, value, min. We'll see what these mean in a second. But first we'll save the code and we'll go to our page, and you should see these progress bars coming on the page. Now, I don't need the progress bar, which is pointing to 0. So I'm just going to delete it. Let's actually delete everything as well. We might have just copy paste one progress bar, right? Yep, good. And I also want to label this progress bar. So I'm gonna add a span tag which says that the first one is going to be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Right, and I'm just gonna copy this and paste it a bunch of times. And I'll say that the second progress bar is going to be of Node.js. The third one is going to be MongoDB, MySQL, and you guys can like alter this as per your expertise. React.js, a little bit of Unity, 3D, and C Hash, and then I know a little bit of C++ as well. Okay, as soon as we do that, we see all these labels coming in. They're not really visible. So I'm gonna come over these attributes after a little while, but let's actually start the styling because we're pretty much done with all the HTML code we need. So I'm gonna say that now I'm gonna be styling the skill section, comment it out, and okay. So the first thing I want to target is the whole section because I want to apply an alternating color to this theme of the page. So I'm just going to say that I want to target the skills section, which is a wrapper div for the whole section. I want to apply some padding from the top and the bottom. So we're going to say that 100 pixels from the top and bottom and 0 pixels from the left and the right. And I'm going to apply a background color. I have an RGB code for this, which is 51, 51, 51. It's sort of like a dark slate grayish color. Okay. Now, first problem that we have is I want to explicitly style this column and this column as well. Both will have different styles, but they have a similar class. So I will add a class skills left section, let's say, and in here I'll add skills right section, and you can assign as many classes as you want. It's totally based on your opinion. And let's target the skills left section. And I want to say now the display is going to be flex. I covered this display thing in the previous workshop, so you can check that out. Flex direction is going to be column, and justify content, just keep everything centered. Okay. Then I want to target this heading, and remember we assigned an ID to it. So we're just going to say that inside sales section, I want to target the heading. And the way we target headings, IDs, is by applying a hash. So we're going to say that heading is an ID because we specified a hash before it. And then we're going to say that the font weight is going to be 600. And the font size is going to be around 50 pixels. Right, as soon as I refresh, you can see that the background color is applied. This is a little bit bigger. Okay, looks good. Then let's target the horizontal rule that we added, because right now the rule is there, but you cannot see it because it's like dark over dark. So I'm going to say skill section. Inside that, I want to target the HR, and I want the border to be around 0.5 pixels. That is very, very thin, solid, and the theme color of Peru. The width, which is like the actual width of how much columns it would take up, is going to be 6 REM. REM is a unit of measurement, just like pixels. Then a margin of about 12 pixels from the top and the bottom, and 0 pixels from the left and the right. So let's see that this is now there. Next, I want to target this paragraph, and I want to say that the color will be this one, which we assign to the paragraph in our home section. And then the font size is going to be around 13 pixels, not too big. Okay. Now, I want to target this list group. Well, the way I do that is I tap into the skills section. Then I say, what class did I have? Skills list, right? So dot skills list and dot list group item. And I would say that I don't want any border. There was a little black border over there. I don't want it. The color inside the text should be white. And you might see this little orangey thing over these. That is going to be assigned through border left. So I'll say that I need a border on the left of about 2 pixels. It's going to be solid and it's going to be the color of Peru. Now, the border radius, 0 pixels, just explicitly assigning it. It doesn't assign any curves to list group item. Then a margin of about 5 pixels and 0 pixels. Let's assign some width, about 338 pixels. A background, I have an hash code for this. It's 81818180. And a font size of about 14 pixels. Okay, and as soon as we refresh it, you'll see that by just like writing 7 lines of code, we were able to change that white blocky thing into this. So yeah. Now let's add this like hover effect that I have here, right? So let's see how we do that. So the first thing I will do is inside this class, I want to target the A tag, which has my text, and I want to apply a transition to it of about 0.5 seconds because this is what we're gonna be animating. And then I would say that as soon as I hover over this list group item, this A should change, and it has to have a margin from the left of about 10 pixels. And when I save that and I refresh it, as soon as I hover over this list group item, you'll see that it has a nice little hover effect. Okay, now let's get on with this progress bars. I assigned a class to it, which was skills right section. And inside that, I believe I had another class which was skill. Right? So let's say inside the skill class, I want the margin to be about 15 from the top and the bottom. Then in the same thing, we had the labels, which were defined through the span tag. I want their color to be white, so they're visible, and their font size to be about 14 pixels. Yes, that looks much better. Okay. Then in the same class, we had this div of the class of progress, which contains the actual progress bar. So we want to access this progress class, and let's assign background color to it of the same color we did to the list group items, which was 81818180. A border radius of about 100 pixels. I want the edges to be a lot curved. A margin top of about 3 pixels. Height of about 10 pixels. And a margin bottom of about 15 pixels. Let's actually save this and view it. Yes, that looks much better. Okay. Now, let's not target the progress div, but actually target the progress bar now. And I want the background color to be this theme color that we have. That's pretty much what I want to do. And as soon as we refresh, you'll see that the color has been changed. Now, let's actually assign some values to these progress bars, right? And that is going to be done through the HTML code that we have. So you see style attribute over here, which says the width is 25%. So I'm actually going to change it. I'll say that I have like about 90% scale in HTML, CSS, and JS, about 80% in Node.js, about 60% in databases, about 80 in React.js, then about 90 in Unity, and about 75 in C++. As soon as I refresh, you'll see all these values coming to the page. And you can also add your custom labels. You can see that how it's been added, and then you can add all these attributes. You can give yourself some time and study about these progress bars on the Bootstrap page. Come up with your own designs. Okay, so the skills section, pretty much done. It's all done actually. Now let's target this project section now. So I will close the skills section. I don't want to see it. And then I will say that now I'm going to be making the projects section. Okay, cool. So abhi tak what we were doing was we assigned the first class of a wrapper section and then a container, then a row. Let's actually have a different approach this time. I'm going to assign an ID to this div that we have. I'm going to say that this ID is going to be a portfolio because it is a portfolio of your projects. And then a class of the Bootstrap defined row and cover. Inside this, I want an h1, which says projects, and then a span tag, which contains the dot, and then we're going to style it this color. And let's actually add some Bootstrap classes as well. The text should be white, and the text should also be center. Yes, that looks good. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is have a container class. So let's actually look at the layout of the projects page, right? So if you see, the projects page is actually divided into two columns, and that one column is also divided into two columns, which the first column contains the text and the second column contains the image, and then that makes up a whole column, which is the first projects column. So how do we do that? Pretty simple. We're gonna make a class of container again. And then inside this, I want a class of row, and I also want to explicitly assign another class which says portfolio projects, right? And then I will say that for large devices, occupy 6 of these little strips that you have on your screens. So that will occupy half of your page. And inside that, I want to create another row, which is going to handle, the first row is going to handle the text. The first column, sorry, is going to handle the text. And the second column is going to handle the image. So inside this row, I want to create 2 columns. The first will be call SM5. And I will also apply text sent to it. And in here, I will say that I have the first h4, which will say that this is one of the projects I made, right? And let's actually assign some classes to it. So the first class is going to be portfolio projects title, and also text weight. Okay, next, a little description of your project. Let's actually assign a class, which is going to be pretty much the same. I just want not the title, but the description. I'm just going to say that this was a website for an international hackathon. That's pretty much it. Then another p tag, which will have the same class. Right, and it's going to say that this uses HTML, CSS, uses JavaScript, uses Bootstrap, PHP, MySQL. Okay. And the next thing we need is a little button. So what we're going to do is, let's actually create an anchor tag. You can add the link to your project, either your GitHub or anywhere where your live project is hosted. In this href, I'm leaving it as hashed right now. And then I need the class of btn, a bootstrap defined class, a btn rounded, another bootstrap defined class, and then a user defined class of projects. Let's keep it portfolio projects btn. So keeping the theme of these classes the same, so I don't mess up in the CSS. And I'm gonna add a role. I was gonna say that this anchor tag is gonna behave as a button, and I will say that this will say view project. Okay, so this text column is pretty much done. The next thing I want to do is create the image column, and I will say that this will have a class of call sm7 and also text center, and I'll include an image. We don't need to include the alt text. I will say that the source is going to be images, and I believe it's VHack website. You can add whatever image you want, and then a class of portfolio projects image. Okay, good. And I'll save it back. Okay, we do have the text, we have the button. It's not really styled yet, but the image is very, very big. So let's actually write the whole HTML code first, and then we'll target every single class and element through CSS. Right, and now you actually just need to copy paste all these things. So inside this row, I told you that we have 2 columns, right? So the first one is going to be divided into further 2 columns, which will contain the text and the image, and this column is going to be repeated. So I will copy this column and I will paste it and just change the values. I will say that this is another of my project Ikigai, and I will say website acting as a one-stop solution for mental health, developed during a hackathon. Cool. Then it uses HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, and Node.js. Cool. And then what I want to do is this whole row that had these two projects, I want to copy this whole row. So over there, and I want to paste this below it and just alter the values. Let's say maniacs. This is a 3D horror game. It uses Unity 3D, C#, and Blender 3D and View project. Also, we'll have to change the image as well. So this one is, I believe, Hackathon 2. This one is Maniacs. And you can add like whatever information that you want about your projects. Okay, looks good. And yes, pretty much done with the HTML. Actually, we are done with the HTML. And as soon as we refresh the page, you'll see these big images coming, which we want to decrease the width of. And then we want to style these text columns as well. Okay. Let's do that. All right. So I will say that now I will style the projects section. Cool. The first thing that I did was create an ID over the first section, right? So this was having a portfolio ID. So I will say that I want to target this portfolio ID, and the background color. Actually, let's not do that. The background color is what we need. I want to actually target the H1 in here, right? And I want to say that let's add some padding from the bottom of about 1.25 em. A margin top of about 100 pixels, a font weight of 600 pixels, and a font size of 50 pixels. And when that is done, I then want to save it and see what it looks like. Should increase its padding and size. That looks good. I want to target this now. Okay. Let's actually style the button. So I'm going to say, what was the class that I assigned to the button? It was, yeah, here it is. Copy this, paste it, and I'll say that the color, I want it to be the theme color. I want the button to have a border of about 1 pixel thick, solid, and the theme color. The border radius should be about 5 pixels, a little curved over the edges, and the margin bottom is going to be the same, 1.25 em. Then, as soon as we as soon as we hover over this, right, we want the background to be white and the color to be black. Yes, that looks good. And then the last thing that we need to do is target the image, right? So that was image, and I want the width to be about 100% of the div that we created, the margin bottom to be about 1.80 em, let's say, and the padding top of about 5%. And when we refresh the page, see that these images are now contracted and the page looks good. Okay, that looks good. I think we have completed the project section. Now the only thing is left is the contact form or the footer section. So I don't want to see the project section now, because now we are going to be designing the footer section. Let's do that. And for this, I will actually assign this into a footer tag. It's the same as what we did here, right? We assigned a nav tag. So it's the same, almost the same as that. And I will have an ID over here. We'll say that this can be targeted through an ID of contact. Then, of course, we need a container, and then we need a row. Then we'll assign a class of call MD4, let's say. Right, and I will also then have some inline styling. It says that the margin top is going to be about 25 pixels. Right, and let's also create another column. So the first column that we will see will contain this text, and the second column will contain this form. So I will say that this has to be a little bit bigger. So call MD8 would do. And then inside this, I want a form. No, we'll design the form later on. First, let's get on with the text and all. In here, I want to add a P paragraph tag. Inside this, I want to add a span tag. It will say the style. We'll assign the color. It will say that made with. And then this is a way that you can incorporate emojis in your web page. You just type in ampersand, and then you type in hearts, and it'll actually suggest you this, right? And then I want another span tag. I'll say that made with love by BVPIEEE. You can add your name in here, and I'll apply the same color over here as well. Okay, as we refresh it, you should see there's a little text coming over here. Then I want to have an H1 which says that reach me at, and it's going to have a style of color Peru. And that will actually do for the text. Now let's actually get on with the form. Now, what is a form? The form, you might have heard like Google Forms and all. What do they do? They take in inputs from you, right? The user. So this is exactly what we want to achieve in our web page. So that's why we include a form tag. So this gives us access to some tags such as the input tag. What is the input tag? If I press enter, it will say that input type text. So this defines that this input is going to be the type of text. So it'll actually render a text box. Sorry, not a text box, a text field over there. You can also say that I want this to be a text area. So that'll be like a big text area which you see in the description labels, but we just want to need the text right now. The class is, I'll assign a class, let's say space. And there's something known as placeholder. I'll show you what a placeholder does is, as the name suggests, placeholder will actually print out a gray text over here, which is tell the user what this field needs to be filled of, such as this name. So I'll say that the placeholder is going to be name. And I'll copy this and paste it a bunch of times. Right, this should do. I want the mail ID in the next one, the phone number in the next one, let's say the company name in the next one, and something like designation maybe in the next one. And then in the end, I want to add a button, which is going to be the type submit. So it'll be an actual submit button. And let's actually assign a class. What did we call that class? Was it portfolio projects btn, right? Yes, and a user-defined class of submit. Let's add some inline style. I will say the margin left is about 10 pixels, space it out a little. And this will just say submit. Okay. And as soon as I refresh it, you will see something like this. Let's actually style it with CSS. Okay. So for the footer section, we don't have much classes because most of our styling was inline, but we had a space class which targeted every text field. Actually, let's comment it out so that we know this is the footer section. Okay, a margin of 10 pixels so that it looks a little spaced around. Then the contact form, sorry, the section, I want to add a background color of that alternating color that we had, RGB 51, 51, 51, and a padding from all four sides of about 50 pixels. And then I want to target the button that we made. I want the border radius to be about 10 pixels, the font size to be about 19 pixels. Let's add the color as white, the background color as Peru. I want a border as well. Let's have a 2-pixel border, solid and Peru, and a width of about 120 pixels. The font family that we need, actually, it's in the root attribute, so we don't need to incorporate the font family. The margin top is going to be 10 pixels. And we save it, we go here, we refresh, and that looks good. Okay, so we are pretty much done with our page. Now, there are little things, some little things that are left, but I would suggest that you explore them by yourselves. Go to the Bootstrap page, go to W3 schools, or read some MDN docs, and you'll understand more and more about HTML, CSS as you make the page yourself, right? So I'll tell you what the things that have to be done are. So the first thing is the nav section, right? The nav section should be able to go to every specific section. So as soon as you click the link over here, nothing is happening right now, but as soon as you click it, if you click on skills, it should take you to the skills section. And a little hint about this, you need to apply an ID to the skills section, because right now there's just a class. If you apply an ID and you say that inside the skills list item, I want to target it to, let's say, the skills ID. So it'll actually go to your skills ID, right? So it doesn't have to be a web page which you add in the href. And yeah, you need to add your resume as well in the homepage button. So as soon as you add an href, wrap it around an A tag, add an href here, and take him to your Google Drive link, or you can add another folder here known as assets, and then you can add your resume over there, and then you can figure out how to actually open your resume through the local storage that you have in your project. So these are some bits and bobs that you need to complete yourself. And let's actually end this workshop here. We'll end the coding here. And now I'm going to teach you a final thing of how to actually make your project go live through GitHub pages, which is, of course, absolutely free. So, okay, let me go to GitHub, right? And I want to create a new repository. I will say that this repository is of my portfolio, right? And project created for a workshop of BVPIEEE CS. This is my description. You can add yours. Then this has to be a public repository. Anyone on the internet can see this repository. Or if you choose as private, you can only control who will see and make changes to this repository. We don't want a README. We don't want a git ignore file. We don't want a license. You just select create repository. And now you see a bunch of this code, right? Now, this might look very intimidating. It's actually a Git code. You need to install Git on your system, and then this has to be done through the command line. But I'm actually going to tell you a different and a pretty easy method in which you can upload all your files, all your projects to GitHub without writing any code. And that is done through Github Desktop. So if you guys don't have Github Desktop installed, I would suggest that you guys install Github Desktop. It's very, very simple. I'll go through it as well. Go type in Github Desktop, link, and then you just download for Windows. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Then, as soon as you download Github Desktop, you would see on GitHub. I want so you'll see that you have an option of adding a repository. What you want to do is you don't want to create a repository. You don't want to add an existing repository. You want to clone the repository. So what is happening in the GitHub side is, right, you have created a repository through the internet on your GitHub page. So this is the URL on which your GitHub page, your GitHub repository is hosted. But this is right now on the internet. And what do I mean by clone repository? As soon as you clone the repository, it's going to make a copy of your repository from the internet, and then it'll paste it in your local systems. So you can actually change the repository in your systems, and then you can say that we call it commit. Commit means that you can actually change your code and save it on your systems. GitHub will consider it as a commit. It'll say that you have changed your code. Do you want to commit in the main code? Do you want to actually change the code that you changed and push it into the main branch, the main repository that you had? So let's actually see how to clone the repository, right? So you will just copy this URL here, and you'll say that I want the URL one and clone. It will clone the repository and you will see it here. Now, the first thing that you want to do is, so what is the repository basically? Basically, repository is a directory, right? It's a file. And wo file on your systems is by default saved in documents in the folder of GitHub. So if I open my file explorer and I go to documents, GitHub, I should see my portfolio appearing here. And these are all the repositories that I have right now. Now inside this my portfolio thing, right? I want to add all the files that I have in my desktop folder. So I'll just reveal it in File Explorer. This is the desktop folder. And this is the folder inside my GitHub directory. I will copy these files and I will paste it in here. And as soon as you do that, GitHub will see that you have made changes in your repository, in your local repository. You have all this index code that we wrote, all this styles.css that we wrote, everything you have on your local repository. And now you need to add a summary of what you actually did, what changes did you made. So I actually added the project. And now it says that commit to main. I will commit it to main. As soon as you commit, it has locally saved all your changes, but to actually push it to your internet so that you can see this in your GitHub, you say publish branch. It will push all the objects to your main branch, to your main repository. And as soon as you go to your GitHub and refresh it, you will see all these files are now uploaded. Right, pretty simple, no coding required, only a little file changing. And also GitHub is very, very intelligent. So let me actually show you something, right? If I open VS Code, give me a second. And okay, not this one. Yeah. And if I open the folder, I don't want to open the desktop folder. I actually have my local repository folder, which is inside the GitHub folder. I select this one. This will have all the files that you wrote. And let me actually just change a minor thing, right? Let me change, I'll change this @ sign to just @ in words, and I'll save my changes. As soon as I go to my GitHub desktop, it will automatically detect that you changed this @ to this @. And you can actually add another that minor changes, maybe, and then commit it to main. As soon as you commit, you can push it to origin and it will automatically update on your GitHub repository on the internet. So that's a pretty good way to do it, right? And you can actually see that I changed the index HTML. It was minor changes 16 seconds ago. Now, how to very, very simple. You just go to settings, you scroll down, GitHub pages. And now you can just say that the source is going to be the main branch. That is where your files are, and you are just going to save it. And you'll see that your site is ready to be published. And as soon as you open it up, oh, that makes a mistake. Yes, is there. So that is pretty much it. You'll have your URL, which is Sadvik Singh, which is the name of my GitHub ID, then github.io, and then the name of your repository. That will be the default URL that you will have while hosting your page on GitHub pages. So that was very, very simple. And I hope you guys are clear now. I hope you have a very good idea of how HTML CSS works and how to actually make your own portfolio and make it go live through GitHub Pages. And I hope you enjoyed this session, this series of workshops. And let's get on with some questions. Any one of you, if you have any questions, you can now ask. Shivam has shared the repository for the whole project that I made, so you can use it and modify it according to your needs. Can you explain the project section again from 143 line? I sure can. 143. Okay, so what I did here, Anurag, was that actually show you, right? So the projects it basically has two columns, right? And in those two columns, so let's actually see it. I don't know if I can. Wait, can I do it? Oh, okay. Right. Okay, let me actually see if I can paste it over here, right? Okay, so now I can actually tell you how it is. Okay, so this projects page, right? This projects page is actually divided into 4 grid-like structures, right? And these 4 grid-like structures, the first one actually contains 2 rows, and these 2 rows contains 2 columns, and those 2 columns further contains 2 columns as well. So if I actually say that, let's say this is how my page is divided, right? This is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one, this is the fourth one. What I did was, I actually divided this into like this. So this was the first column and this was the second column. And inside the first column, what I did was, this was a separate row. So the row ends here. This is the first row, and this first row is divided into 2 columns. This first column, I further divided it into 2 columns. I said that this is 1A, let's say, and this is 1B. And 1A contains the text, 1B contains the image. And I just copied this and pasted in here. So this was like 2A and 2B. And I copied this whole row and pasted it below. So this was all replicated. I hope this answered your question.
Yeah, guys, do you have any other doubts? You can ask.
Okay, great. Also, Shivam, did you share the form link?
I'm sharing this time.
Okay. Also, guys, you can fill out those forms and you'll get your participation certificates in like a couple of days for this workshop. Yes, the website is responsive. And if you want it more responsive, you can add a bunch of media queries as well. But Bootstrap automatically makes it responsive because we added like the classes like call SM5, right? So it says that when the screen size is small, occupy 5 columns.
Also, if you have any doubts, you can look up to our YouTube page. I have shared the link. The whole session is in YouTube live stream. You can see whenever you want. for all your doubts.
Okay. Thank you guys for joining in to the session. Thank you for being a part of this workshop series. And I hope you guys are present for all the future events that CS holds. As soon as you fill out the form, you can leave the meeting. And thank you again.